Folks, some Americans think empire and tyranny and torture is sexy. When the government doesn't have to follow any laws, in every case, it will rob you 7 ways to Sunday. It will conscript your children as military chattel, you name it. And on every front, this country has political cancer. And talking to constitutional law scholar, his latest book is American Empire Before the Fall. That's his new book. And we're now here at the Empire. We were talking during the break about Ron Paul's speech, but also the training manuals, the videos, the cop that called in earlier where they demonized the Founding Fathers. I mean, if I was a cop and they were demonizing the Founding Fathers, I would know you're demonizing America. But they truly think America is bad. It's such a mind trick. How do they do that, Bruce?
Well, it shows how a political culture can warp words and original meaning. I say just like they did in George Orwell's 1984. You know, the Ministry of War is the Ministry of Peace. And so even though the Constitution bequeathed a republic, remember Benjamin Franklin, a republic if you can keep it, the culture has warped the words and the meaning of the document. So now what was intended as a republic is now an empire. We saw it in a little different way, too, during the 100 years of Jim Crow after the Civil War. Equal protection, non-discrimination then meant white supremacy, and it took really a cultural revolution with many very brave people dying, including freedom riders, etc., before the original meaning returned. And that's where we are today. To my mind, to try to denigrate and demonize the Founding Fathers as somehow unfaithful to our mission as a country is, and the last time I read about somebody who did that, we called him Benedict Arnold. And Benedict Arnold was viewed as a traitor and not somebody who was loyal to the United States. And these are the sentiments that would have allied people to King George III and fighting against George Washington at Yorktown, fighting against George Washington at Saratoga, etc. So again, this is truly shocking, and it shows in what disrepute and contempt our Constitution is being held, and yet it is our birth certificate. It is our North Star if we're going to keep away from the ruination that has afflicted all empires.
In closing, do you concur with Ron Paul's analysis that this, if allowed to continue to go through, is the final nail in the coffin?
Yes, I do. We're standing at the Rubicon, and if we let this pass without rebuke, you know, the president just deciding the heck with the War Powers Resolution, the heck with the law, I do things on my own, then it's just a matter of time. Again, before we have someone who's as bad as Caligula and will then overtly suspend the Constitution, less doing it on the installment plan, and we will be back to where we were when we were fighting in 1776, a retrogression of 235 years.
Well, that's like the Feds saying there's no states' rights. Why do we even have states? That's like the states saying, government saying that they run the parents. Why even have parents? I mean, why even have a House and Senate if we're going to have this? I mean, it's history is repeating itself. Historically, in closing, what type of horrors generally come from this direction we're going in?
The horrors come when we suspend trials. People who are politically unpopular suffer persecution, not for what they did, but for what they think. And all of the privacy is invaded, and the police are the law rather than being subject to the law. Again, all empires fall to ruination in particularly different ways, but the most decisive element is this. In a republic and in our Constitution, the individual is the center of the constitutional universe, and liberty is foremost, and government is there to secure the unalienable rights of individuals. In an empire, government is first. Big and bigger and stronger government is the center of the constitutional universe, and anything that can make government bigger and stronger in the name of safety goes. And that's exactly where we're headed if we do not draw the line here and it was a so-called retreat into the safety of the republic that the Founding Fathers so nobly sacrificed.
Bruce, stay there. You've got to go fine. If not, we're back in 1 minute. I want you to talk about solutions in a final 5 minutes. Straight ahead. Stay with us. Looking at this empire, I want to talk about briefly some solutions. What are ways that you see to restore sanity, to try to reverse this destruction of the republic, with the Republicans loving tyranny, the leadership, the Democrats loving it? As the corruption mounts, as the debts mount, their answer is more government, more tyranny. How do we reverse this disaster? Because obviously, the liberty we've had in this country, while not perfect, became the model of the world and the engine of ideas and wealth. And now as we lose the liberty, we see the wealth draining away because it's a historical fact that the two are connected.
Well, absolutely right. The rule of law is what attracts investment, and it provides the confidence about the future that enables economics to flourish. But what is the remedy? The institutions, as you point out, are already compromised. And the remedy really is public education. The American people just have to stand up and say, enough is enough. I mean, if they could do it in Egypt, if they can do it in Tunisia, if the Pakistani lawyers can revolt against dictatorship, the American people have to have the same courage. And we don't need to go to the streets right now. We just need to go to the ballot box. And my idea is, hey, you have a member running for the Congress of the United States, unless they pledge they're going to enforce their authority to decide on war and peace, they're going to decide what taxes go or not, they're going to decide whether your privacy is evaded, they will accept accountability. Say, no, I don't want you to be there if you're a potted plant. I don't need wallpaper to pay for it, at $170,000 or $180,000 a year. And the American people have to run this litmus test after every single candidate for the Congress. We hear all these statements of how much they sacralize the Constitution, and then they arrive in Washington, and the first thing they do, they put the torch to the Constitution. So we need to rebuke and retaliate against these people who pledged and they read on the floor of Congress every word of the Constitution, and then they turn around and flout exactly what they read and say it's an aroused citizenry. And I say we should take inspiration from some of these other countries where they don't have nearly the opportunities of freedom of expression and the ability to change things peacefully that we do here. But we've got to be involved. We can't think it's going to happen by spontaneous combustion. That's going to happen just by cruise control. And that is our dignity as Americans, that we chart our own destiny. We don't give it to others to do that.
Well, you're absolutely right. I look at the Texas legislature and this TSA groping. Unanimous in the House. The Senate didn't want a vote to be made, so they let the lieutenant governor basically spike it because they were going to pass it 30-31, and so suddenly the bill just got withdrawn because of this cowardice. They never want to have a public position. They just want to go with the flow, and we're taught that that's what a statesman is. Is that not historically the opposite of a statesman?
Well, that is right. It's what Dante in his Inferno, he writes that the worst places in hell are reserved to those statesmen in times of great moral crisis who declare their neutrality. And that's what these people need to remember if they think that they're going to go down on some kind of pedestal or make their way to Mount Rushmore. Ducking their responsibility like that is the opposite of what a statesman is. They are the kinds of people who were there when the Rubicon was passed and the Roman Republic fell into the Roman Empire.
And we're not going to have to wait a couple hundred years for the empire to get really bad. I mean, look at where do you see us economically? I mean,
it's unsustainable. We cannot continue to live this way. Just think of this. This should be truly frightening to your audience. We now, with a $14.3 trillion national debt, pay annually interest with interest rates about zero, of close to $500 billion. When the interest rate goes from 0 to 5%, now we're paying interest of $3 trillion. That is, our entire budget is going to be paying interest on the debt. This cannot be sustained. It cannot.
And now Standard & Poor's says we're getting ready to lose the AAA rating, which is exactly what these big mega banks have been wanting.
Yes, and they'll charge more interest by your Treasury bills and securities, and it'll come out of our tax money. What we've got to do, we can probably save $1 trillion on our $1.2 trillion national security budget. We've got to take more responsibility for our health, for all the provisions in every health care combined. If we were just responsible for a sensible diet and sensible exercise regime, we could probably save the country trillions of dollars without having a single law there.
It all goes back to personal. It all goes back to
responsibility.
Yeah. Right. Bruce-Fein, constitutional law scholar. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
All right. Listen, have a great day.
You too. All right. Great job to the crew. Great job to everybody else out there. Looks like they're trying to get the anti-groping bill back in the special session. Call Perry.